Morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 21st, 2006 initial meeting of the Charter and Rules Committee at the City of Holyoke. I am the chair, Mimi Panich. With me tonight in chambers is the vice chair, Linda Vacon, and member Rick Purcell. And I would entertain a motion to open the meeting.
Normally you just call it to order, but
Okay.
I'll make a motion
No,
to.
thank you, because I'm still running on the planning board rules, and
Yeah.
any help I can get is very welcome.
All right, so usually.
okay.
say-
So this meeting is now called to order. We also have Counselor Meg McGrath-Smith on Zoom. So the first item,
I'll make a motion to take up item 1.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 1 is the minutes from the December 9th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up items 2 and 3 as a package.
There a second?
Second.
So moved. Okay, these are both orders having to do with making the charter changes necessary to conform our charter with the ordinances that we are working with to pass the Financialization Act. I know 2 of them were placed on the table after the last meeting.
So, if I
Please,
may.
please.
So at the last city council meeting, they had been tabled previously and they were sent back to committee. And so relative to these orders, one of which I'm a filer on,
Yeah.
these were related to the collector treasurer, which does not at this time exist.
Yes.
So my motion on these is going to be to give them leave to withdraw, and then a future order could be filed should it come into existence.
Okay.
That would be my motion.
Under discussion, Rick, you have any comments?
I'm looking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Counselor McGrath-Smith, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair Panich. So I guess my question for the committee is, with this order, there's a number of charter changes that were proposed underneath item 2. Originally, they were 2 ones that were specific to the treasurer collector and also to the soldiers Memorial Commission. And it was in making sure that we were sort of removing the elected treasurer from being, now that they're not elected, no longer in the succession for the mayor, and replacing that position with the clerk. So those were the 2 first changes that we looked at and approved and moved to council. And then some additional charter changes were added after that. My question, I guess, is what is in the packet that you all have in front of you, which charter changes do you have? And is it all of them, including the ones that got added afterwards, or just those first 2? Because I think it definitely makes sense to look at those and then decide which charter changes would we want to move forward once we have, combed through the ordinance package that we'll be looking at this Tuesday.
Yeah, and looking at these, I had a similar sense of what was going on, which is basically, as I think Councilor Vacon just pointed out, we don't have the language for the ordinance yet. We don't know what it's going to provide, and it doesn't make a great deal of sense to put together a charter change ordinance or petition to the Great and General Court until we know what we're changing it to. So whether the best thing would be to put these back on the table or to give them leave to withdraw and start over again when we're ready. And I think we come out to the same place, although, you all have been at this for a year and I'm happy to be guided by it. But these changes, just the ones I saw, were organizing the chain of succession, getting the treasurer out because the treasurer is no longer an elected position, and just going directly to the clerk, and after that, if there's a problem, to the president of the city council. Yes, Councilor Bacon.
So in the first one, it's amending it from city treasurer to treasurer collector. So that one, in my view, should be given leave to withdraw until such time as the ordinance is changed. The next one is deleting treasurer out of the line of succession, because as you
Yeah.
just said, it was changed from elected to appointed, so that one could theoretically move forward. Because it, regardless of what happens, it won't go back to being elected in the near future, at least, as things look.
Yeah, and I don't have the notation on my copy of this because disorganization, basically. But I read through this and there was one minor, I suppose you'd call it Scrivener's error. They were correcting and rewriting, and there's just a grammar point that needs to be fixed.
In here now,
Yeah.
so
Or at least-
where,
Well, possibly it's been caught since I saw it electronically.
I'm sorry?
Possibly it's been caught and fixed since I saw it on the electronic version of it.
Oh, okay. So,
So, at any rate, I think I would.
so we could move this
could-
piece forward relative to the treasurer. So I'll amend my motion to, well, how about if we mark the one that says treasure collector 2A and the one that doesn't 2B, so we know what we're talking about? So I would amend my motion to say to give leave to withdraw to 2A and recommend that we adopt 2B.
Okay, and Counselor McGrath Smith. I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so my thought was only just in terms of timing, it might make sense to keep this tabled so that we don't have to go through the whole process of having to refile and go through the process of sending it to council and then back to charter and rules, just in terms of giving the committee more flexibility. Because if we do move forward with the combined treasurer collector, which seems likely, then 2A would stand.
Yeah. And, I am happy to do it that way. Except for the timing issue, which, you note and I do think is real. We're in the same place. Either way, we're not moving 2A until we know more. And 2B seems ready to roll. So if that's acceptable, I would say, let's do that. It just cuts a step out of it, and it still allows us to withdraw A if anything changes.
So I'll amend my motion to table A and then recommend going forward with B.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that we recommend out, and we can bring it up on the next agenda, I guess. So, item 3. No, we just did item 3. Item 4, is there a motion to bring up item 4?
We didn't do 3. We did 2.
So we did. All right, item 3. This has been tabled since August 25, and this is the one where I really felt that we might as well keep it on the table because there's no point in drafting something until we know what we're drafting to conform to. And Meg, once again, I see your hand up.
Sorry, I think I had lowered it from earlier. My apologies.
So, if I may,
Please.
I think I'm the only maker on this order,
Yeah.
and this order was filed a long time ago.
Yes.
And it was filed with the understanding that we would have long ago appointed a treasurer. And it would be in the context of having a qualified treasurer that we could therefore combine with the collector's office. And my motion on this is to give it leave to withdraw. Ordinance Committee will do what it will, but this is my order and I want to give it leave to withdraw.
Well, I would completely defer to the maker of the order.
I still need a second, though.
But, yes. Do I get to second as
You
chair?
can.
Okay, I second. And on the motion,
Aye.
aye. Unanimous. Okay,
Motion to take up item 4.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, this was filed by Councillor McGrath Smith, and it is ordered that best practices concerning filing orders be discussed and consensus sought. And I do have a communication from Councillor Devine, who could not be here tonight, and just basically asked for more of an explanation about what was going on with this order and what the maker had in mind.
That's what we all need.
Yes, but I didn't want to forget to mention that she had reached out.
It's very general.
So, Councillor McGrath Smith?
Thank you. So, and this, I talked to Ann Thalheimer about this too, because she wasn't able to join tonight because she has a class that she takes on Wednesdays. So part of this is tied to looking at the agenda items that we have and then comparing it to what agendas look like, you know, for other communities like ours. Our agendas are very long. You look at the types of items that we tend to file, a lot of it's about microinfrastructure. It's, you know, stuff that we are trying to communicate to the public, that we are communicating to the city government. And I guess one of my questions is particularly around a lot of stuff that we put on council agendas. You know, whether it's maybe we already reached out to a department chair, but something didn't happen or didn't happen quickly. And so now we're trying to communicate it through official channels on an agenda. I've just noticed that we have a lot of items that we send that seem more like communication items to city departments and to the mayor. And so it was more a question around, is that a longstanding practice that we want to continue? Is there a better way of doing it so that we have fewer agenda items to claw through in a single meeting? I mean, it's normal for us to have 70 to 90 agenda items on a single agenda. And if you look at area agendas, even of other cities larger than us, that's not what their agendas look like. Part of that has to do with our form of government. We have a very strong city council. But I do wonder if we want to continue using the council agenda in that way, or if we want to find other or better ways to be more efficient with the agenda that we create.
Yes, Councillor Bacon.
Thank you. Through the chair, can the maker give an example of an item that could otherwise be handled that you're thinking of?
Oh, even, you know, the ones that Councilor Devine and I have been working on with the Mountain View property. I guess it's a question of like, where is it important to communicate directly with people versus through a council agenda item? It's just interesting that Holyoke is unique in doing it when you look at surrounding area agendas. Just don't see that happening. So is it that we feel like we have to sort of name it publicly so folks know we're working on it? Does it need to be received and adopted? You know, does that really give us extra power? I see a lot of stuff where we say receive and adopt and it doesn't happen. So I feel like maybe there's a performative aspect to it. Especially the things that we send to DPW, you know, or to certain folks where we want something to happen, but that it doesn't happen. And I think I have 6 different items in the jacket for ordinance, all about the HCC light. The council keeps receiving and adopting, and it's not happening. So then is that efficient? Because I'm gonna have to have an agenda here where I have all 6. And we can talk about it. But, is it going to happen? Or is there something else that we need to do instead? Or does it just not have the right support in the right places or the right appropriation? It just strikes me that I see this happening a lot. And especially now coming from the perspective of the ordinance chair, I see a lot of even repeat orders happening over the years. So I just, trying to figure out, is there a way for this to be more efficiently done? Are there other ways that we have to be tackling things to get them done? Because often the receive and adopt piece, unless there's already support from department heads and the mayor to do something, it still doesn't happen.
Okay, Councilor Raycon, and then my turn.
Thank you. So part of the issue, I think our contract engineer tried to explain to us over the last couple of years, that if you file these orders, but there's no money in the budget to actually do them, they're not going to go anywhere. And so her recommendation, as I recall it, and I'm just going by my memory, was that if we were filing orders that were going to cost money that we knew wasn't budgeted, we also have to file an order for the money. And I don't think we've been doing that.
Okay.
Ever. And so I think a lot of the orders, I think it would be fair to say that a number of them are filed so that the constituents know we are trying to get the thing done that they have requested or that they need, that we can see they need, but don't have the ability to actually make happen. And so those are the kinds of things that if a list is kept in the department of all the requests, or we take a look at the summary of all the requests and can make that known during the budget process, we see if there's room in the budget. I mean, like for myself, last budget, we added a brand new position in the conservation department. I was vehemently opposed to that. I would have rather seen the money go to fix something on a street or do more potholes or something the constituents are actually asking for. But it's a matter of prioritizing and paying more here, paying less somewhere else, theoretically. But I think her recommendation was well taken because she gets frustrated, or I'm sure the engineer gets frustrated too, because they can see the need, but they don't have the budget. So
So it
I
seems
think
to me,
it's a good point.
yeah, just listening to this so far, and Councilor Rivera, I see your hand, and I will get to you in just a moment. But this sounds to me like what we need is to think through a process, because most of these sound like they're infrastructure issues. And maybe what we want is an order that would allow us to handle those differently. Say, they go direct to public safety or to whoever handles.
Okay, so can I just say one more thing?
Please, yeah.
So our engineer, Victoria Houle, just sent out an email today. That is in an effort to create a process relative to all these traffic issues you see filed. And I filed an order that people can ask for an assessment for a speed hump instead of having to go through a petition. And I believe that task force that she's trying to get going is to give us something to get at that
Okay.
very thing.
It sounds like we may have consensus here that what we need as a start is a way for people to not have to file the individual orders in council, but to have them go to whatever committee and whatever office at DPW is necessary to have them considered in connection with what they'll cost to do and with the priority.
Right, and my understanding is that will be coming through as a recommended ordinance change.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right.
So we might get there that way, at least on a big chunk of them.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, I think that Councilor McGrath-Smith is right about the way it clogs our city council agenda. And any way forward, I am enthusiastic about. So, Councilor Rivera. I see your hand. I see your presence online.
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
So I kind of want to echo the sentiment that was put out with regards to the particular notion of certain orders can be filed as communications, but if they are filed as communications, then following up with them and having it boggled down as former chair of ordinance committee and even at public safety, a lot of this was an issue and a concern, where some of this can be conversations with just department heads or even with the mayor, and making sure that things are not as performative at the council level, so that way some of the work that we're doing becomes more efficient and effective, and not having us kind of spin the wheels on things that can be handled just directly with department heads. But I think to the point around just a system with developing with the engineers and department heads requests for things that pertain to funding. I think Councilor Bacon is kind of on point where Ms. Hool, Victoria, she recommended that if we are gonna file orders and there's funding or there's an expectation of funding attached to it, that we kind of like try to work with the department heads or whomever it is to figure out where the funding would come from. That there is some sense to be made with that. But I think there's also the part of like when the counselor is filing the order and having the understanding of like whether or not there is an actual possibility of us being able to fund that, right, when speaking to the constituent. Not saying that we don't want to do that, but having the communication or having the effort to be able to reach out with the department heads and say, hey, is this something that we're looking to fund this year or anytime soon? And if that communication comes back, it's something that won't be able to happen at the moment. Similar to a situation that I got the other day, a guy, a business owner on Ray Street, they reached out to me. They've been reaching out to me for the last 4 years, to be honest, since I got on the council, about the potholes on Ray Street between, I think it's Spring Street and Cabot. And he has the business right there, and he's like, hey, all these streets on Ray Street have been getting fixed, but my street is not fixed. What's the issue? I just filed an order now only because I have been calling and I have been reaching out over the last 2 to 3 years to figure out what's going on. And ideally, it would be something that we could fix, but because there is some funding towards that particular corridor coming within the next few years or the next year or so, I had to communicate back to him that we had to continue to wait. So I think it's more about how we're trying to think about doing this so we don't boggle down the council jackets with simultaneous orders. But at the same time, it's just trying to find a happy medium. Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Oh, thank you. And Councillor McGrath Smith, your hand is up, and where are we with this?
Yeah, I really appreciate the conversation that we're having. A couple of things that I've been working on, because I think there's lots of ways to try to get around this issue, is one of the things that Councilor Rivera mentioned is C-Click Fix, right? So, and I think there's a couple orders in public safety currently that I was talking about with Chair Thalhammer about really wanting to push counselors and also residents to get a lot better at using C-Click Fix. But in order for us to push people to use it, there has to be more efficacy in it. And so there's an order that she's going to be taking up around really just creating more layers of accountability, where when somebody puts in an issue, yes, it's coded, but right now, unless someone reaches out to a ward counselor, they're not going to often get any communication back. Like, yep, absolutely, got it, pass it on to the chief of police, he says he's going to send an officer out. Like, even if they close something, they may not put in enough communication in there for people to know what the response was. Nobody's emailing them or calling them. So I do think that we have to have a conversation with, when people post stuff on C-Click Fix, what's the responsibility of someone in that department to communicate back to that person? Because I think what people are looking for is communication, right? They want to know it's not just, it'll be like acknowledged, right? There's those three different, it's open, it's acknowledged, it's closed, right, or resolved. But people don't kind of just want to go in there and see an orange button that says it's been acknowledged. Like, they want it to be actually acknowledged to them. They want someone to call them and be like, so what's the issue? And also, here's what we did about it, right? Or we're going to do about it, or here's the timeline. And I think we have to push for that communication, because right now, ward counselors are holding a lot of it, as are at-large counselors. And I think we have to be pushing our departments to own that communication better. So putting a standing, order into public safety, where every single meeting is, can start with, okay, let's pull up See Click Fix. Here are some of the issues that we've been tracking. Have they gotten better? And being able to kind of maybe move some of the communication through them as a committee. I don't know, like that's part of the conversation around, how do we make it so that people are getting more feedback and more communication from department members rather than having to go to counselors. Because I think we're putting it in because we're hearing from people saying, hey, I've been trying and I'm not getting any headway with this issue.
So did you want to go, or,
I'm sorry?
so you want to go ahead of me, or?
Oh,
Jump
either,
right-
doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's not
So
urgent.
I just, again, listening to this, what it sounds to me like we really want to do is make some kind of rule that basically just will govern process. Like something comes into See Click Fix, we get it logged, it goes to whoever can give us an estimate of the cost and what the timeline would be if, for instance, there would be an issue with Mass DOT. And it is a regular item on public safety's jacket. Just, we know it, the residents know it. We have a chance to think about the budget holistically as these things come in. And if that makes sense, then, I think that's something we ought to pursue. But
I
Councilor
really
Bacon.
think Councilor Bacon's idea of the list.
I'm very warm to improving the use of See Click Fix.
Yeah.
But I do think we have to keep in mind, I'm going to estimate in my ward, half the people are not tech savvy.
So they need an alternate way of reporting.
Right. And they will probably continue to depend on the ward counselor, which I don't think is a bad thing, because I think it keeps us in touch with our constituents, and it also keeps us in communication with the departments. Not that we should be managing them. And personally, I reach out as much as I can to the departments directly first before I file orders. But sometimes they'll even tell me I need it in the budget before I can do anything, so you better file an order. You know what I mean? Because it's the only way it gets into another part of the system,
Yeah.
right? Or they can put it in their budget as well, but,
Yeah, no,
yeah. So
my
I
hope
think
would
we
be-
can do both things, but I do think if we could lessen the amount of it, it would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we can do both. You know, You
Yes.
could build in a pathway for
Right.
people who can't use See Click Fix to report these things.
Exactly.
And, I do like the idea of getting some kind of estimate attached to it, so we just have running costs.
Right.
And when it comes time to think about whether we can appropriate any money,
Right,
we're looking at everything that's competing with it.
right.
So,
Many competing interests.
Rick, you haven't had a chance to talk yet. You're up, and then I will go back to Councilor McGrath Smith.
And I'm not to get off quick fix click item, but just in general, filing orders. I've been on the city council now for 2 meetings, and this is my first subcommittee meeting. Has there ever been a time, and I'm just speaking in general terms, where a city councilor, and Megan and Linda can probably answer this question, where a particular item should not have even been on the agenda because it wasn't going to go to committee and it was going to go to the mayor. And it should have just got emailed to the mayor rather than be put on our agenda. I'm thinking of something that's on the agenda that could have been handled via email rather than be put on our agenda. Like even communications, like what, I understand we have to say we receive communications, but is it appropriate for us to, it probably is appropriate because you guys have been doing it for years, thousands of years, probably hundreds. You get a communication from somebody and say it's from the mayor and he's to our city council, we acknowledge it. And then cut short that. That's that. Now somebody says, send it to the mayor, and it's never seen again by us. Why did we have to be in the middle of it? Why didn't it just go to the mayor in the first place? Why did we have to say, send it to the mayor, and that's the end of it, we never see it again? I'm thinking, in order to get rid of orders, are there orders, and I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know if it's even a problem, if we could just bypass putting something on the agenda that can be handled by email.
I'll share one perspective. I think people put it on the agenda when they are hoping to have support from more than one individual communicating with the mayor on a matter. And the goal is to gain support of at least a majority of the council, thinking that the mayor will pay more attention to that than an email from one person. That would be my reason if I did it. But, so I only chime in from that perspective. I don't know what reasons it always is. Maybe some people do it just to be sure everybody on the council is aware of something.
Yeah.
You got it, so you have it, and it's a matter of record. And that's a good reason if you're concerned about
But that's what-
informing and transparency.
So then my point to that, just what you just said was, why couldn't we just receive it as an email if it wasn't gonna go anywhere? Except to us.
Okay, so if, through the chair, if it is an email just sent to us as individuals, it never becomes part of the public record.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think one other reason is simply because the wisdom of the group. You know, maybe you don't have a initial way of handling a problem that somebody's brought to you, but if you bring it up as an order, maybe somebody else on the council will have some thoughts about how we ought to handle this. But I'm just speculating. And
Right.
meanwhile, Councillor McGrath Smith has her hand up.
Yeah, and I think, Chair, that it's been said around, there can be an important part of just wanting to make something a public record, that the council supports this and we're asking the mayor to do it. So it's a way of creating public pressure. My other thought that I had listening to, thinking about C-Click Fix. So something that Councilor Thalheimer was encouraging me to do is to log it myself, because you're right, we do have folks who are just not tech savvy. They're gonna call, right? I have people who literally don't even have a, you know, they have like an analog voicemail box at home, right? They don't have computers even, you know? Like I get these phone calls like, call me, I'll be at my house from this hour to this hour. I don't have a computer. And, you know, so for today, I had someone who reached out to me concerned about a couple of houses that have, you know, kind of repeatedly not been clearing their sidewalks or salting and sanding. And we have a lot of folks that walk on Northampton Street, right? In this section of the city. And so I went online and I put it in as C-Click Fix, and I put the 3 in and I logged it as, you know, from Councilor McGrath Smith, and then I got a response from HPD afterwards. So, you know, maybe that's one way of doing it too. And if there's a standing order in public safety where they're then going to take it up and say, okay, well, Councilor McGrath Smith had logged these 3 issues, and it's now up as, okay, an officer was sent to have a care and concern conversation with those 3 households. That's been marked as resolved. It's another way of getting it to exist in a public setting, in a standing meeting, but it not clog our agenda. So I'm just trying to find like,
Yeah.
sort of, you know, are there efficiencies, you know?
That's a good example. How about you, Izzy?
I see.
Is he still there?
Oh, I guess nobody's hand.
So he's still there, but I see no hand raised, other than Meg's. Your hand is still up.
Sorry, well, my last comment was just around the budget, because I think you're totally right. That is like another layer that I haven't even really thought about yet. Other than for this, I had put in an order about speed humps. We have so many, right, that over the years, the petition's been done, and then nothing happens. So I put in the order to ask them to create a list that's like, here are all the outstanding petitions for speed humps that have been, you know, asked for and completed over the years. And then what is the, you know, process, right? So we now have done the work of, as part of the supplemental budget, we, you know, spent money in order to get the in-house machinery that we needed so that we could do the traffic studies in-house, because, thank you, dear, was really getting in our way, because every single time we had to do any kind of traffic study, we had to, you know, get a consultant, and it was this exorbitant fee. So now we can do it in-house. So then I think we have to have a conversation with DPW and engineering around what our expectations are for, we have this huge backlog of these properties or streets where we've said, you know, do the petition process and then we'll give you a speed hump, but it just stopped there. So, and I think what I asked for is give us a list of those speed humps, what's been done, what's the plan to do the traffic study to indicate if they need it or, can get it or not. And then, how much money will it cost to put in speed humps? And then what's their current paving rating? Because if their road just got paved 2 years ago, they're never gonna get those speed humps. It'll be 20 years, right? Like, I don't think we're gonna, cut open the road now. So, or are they at a paving rating where we could, legitimately see them being paved in the next like 1 to 5 or 10 years, so that folks can actually understand what the likelihood is of them getting speed humps and the time frame. Paving has a ridiculous time frame. I don't think our constituents always understand that. They think, well, the road is bad, just put in speed humps now. But unless they're sort of in the queue to get their road repaved, it just seems very unlikely that we'll be installing them, is to my understanding. And maybe we need to ask our council assistant to help us sort of create a list of the things that we receive and adopt from council that have a financial component, so that when we get to budget season, we can then share that from council to the mayor. Hey, just as a reminder, here are all the things that we've received and adopted that we know have a financial impact on the budget. In your budget hearings, can you please address these issues really concretely to us? Like, are they covered in the budget? Or if not, are you asking that to be a trade-off because you're trying to fund something else?
And Councilor Bacon.
Yeah, thanks. So I think the department head should be the one sending the expense request to the mayor, because that's their job as far as creating their department budget, and they have our orders. I do think it is a good idea that somehow we track the receive and adopt orders. I've tracked them myself, because a lot of them never happen unless you do follow up on them. And from a tracking point of view, as the maker of the order, you're the only one who really will follow up on it. Now, we can ask Jeffrey to give us an update, I suppose, but I like the idea of having fewer of those, as the standing order on the see, click, fix. That
Yeah.
would help to reduce a number of that. Now, relative to the speed humps, we were provided with a status report on the speed humps. I believe Victoria put it together. She has also put together, I don't know, somebody put together a big report on the status and degradation of our roads as well. So we do have that data available. It's just a matter of how it will be able to be addressed in the budget. So, but I think all those are good ideas, but should we table this and get more information and find out what's gonna happen with the group before we start looking at making language, or what do you think?
I think we're making great progress here. I think that there are a bunch of good ideas, and we do need to possibly take some time and think about how to proceed. But, yeah, I'm not sure whether this should be an amendment to the rules, whether it should be an ordinance. My inclination is that possibly the rules, because they're easy to amend.
Right, easier than an ordinance.
But, I
I also
think,
think it's possible to give it complied with, because as the maker of the order, it's more that I wanted to get the conversation going, because I think it's gonna start popping up in a couple different places. And I think I just wanted, like, why I'm trying to do those things, to be part of a consensus conversation.
okay, so we've got to start on it, and if you're content to have it complied with, that gets us off the agenda and we can come back.
Right, and hopefully those other things that are happening are going to address some of the concerns.
Yeah,
All right, if, I'll make a motion that the order is complied with.
I'll second it.
okay. On the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Motion to take up item 5.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I actually have a communication from our city clerk about this. She apologizes for not being able to be at tonight's meeting. And she says, I'm, in pertinent part, I am currently working with Municode to ensure that ordinances adopted on the night of a council meeting are entered into Civic Plus, the city's agenda and meeting platform, and in real time listed in a separate section on the Municode website titled Adopted but Not Yet Codified. This will allow all newly adopted ordinances to be publicly listed on the website until Municode codifies them into the appropriate language. I am also happy to add these to the agenda, or even add the link to where they will be listed. I apologize again for not being able to attend this evening. I would be happy to attend a future meeting or to respond to any questions through you or Jeffrey, and I am also available to submit a follow-up communication if helpful. And that looked extremely promising to me.
It sounds good.
Yeah. And, you know,
I don't know exactly, what it looks like, but if we can just click and access it like we do the agenda and the attachments.
yeah, and if it's being updated every time we make a change. But the maker of the order is here, and Councilor McGrath Smith.
Can you
Thank
just
you.
tell us when she said that would happen?
She does.
We don't have it in writing in front of us, we just have the email.
Yeah, but certainly we can ask her.
Yeah.
I know that it's a process that's in motion, as they've been trying to do the Municode update, and I think that Jeffrey I know he's spoken to Brenna about it and has been doing this transition along with her, so I think he may be a good person to weigh in and just share a little bit more if he has more detail. Initially, what I was imagining was that how we had created the section where we could have a placeholder for the executive minutes that had not been released on the agenda, so that it's there and it's always going to be there, and it's going to remind us to keep coming back to it, keep us honest. I was imagining that we would change the agenda. So in the section of the city council rules where we say what the agenda's going to be, I was imagining we would just add in one underneath the standing minutes section that did something to basically identify changes in Municode that are waiting effectively to be done, so that it's there and it keeps us honest. And then every so often, just like we do with the law department, the executive minutes, we would ask the clerk to give us an update. Which of these has now been changed in Municode, in the, not just the, it's coming soon, but in the actual, in the text itself. Because that way, I think it just keeps us honest. I keep running into this where, the financial policies document that we voted over a year and a half ago to put in, there's the title. There's nothing else. Mm-hmm. Under Appendix A, it just says Financial Policies Manual. So, we've said, we've adopted this thing as a community, and now we've been waiting just in a ridiculously long amount of time. If anyone right now wants to look it up, they have to go into the packet from that meeting where we voted on it, or ask Jeffrey for a copy. They can't just go into Municode and type it in and actually read it under Appendix A. That means it's also less accessible to people because it's less searchable, because you can't say, I really want to know what it says about this position or about this process. I'm going to type in and see where that pops up everywhere over the appendix. Can't do that right now still. So I think, for the ordinances that we change, it's really important that we have a standing way to keep us honest around when are these changes being made. And I know that we're in a transition. Maybe at some point it won't be necessary, but it feels important to do so now because we have so many changes from the last 2 years that are still not up.
Yeah, if I can.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. And I feel like I'm pretty well versed in the ordinances, but even so, I've on occasion gone to look something up and then I've been told, oh, that was the old ordinance, because over time you lose track of which one was the new one and perhaps which one wasn't updated. So I'm warm to this, which is why I asked, did Brenna have a date?
Yeah.
Because if she said, so what's today, January 20th or whatever, if she said, this is going to be live March 1st, I'm good. Yeah. I wouldn't feel the need to do this because it's going to add a lot of paper and it's going to be like our agendas with all the tabled items. that are gonna be sitting there, scrolling through a lot of info. You know what I mean? If we
no,
have
I
to
do.
stack them all. But again, if it's gonna take another 6 months or a year,
Then we have to look
we
at
we
alternatives.
need something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can certainly ask how long this is likely to take, but, this has been driving me berserk for probably a decade now. I don't know how our law department is even coping.
I think we lost Municode for a while, for a year or so, that we didn't even do it.
Yeah, and, then there are the things that are just whatever the Municode system does with things. Like, we still have the charter provision up that says that the mayor can't vote on school committee issues. And that was amended in 1982.
Wow.
There's a note in Municode, to be fair, that says that it was amended in 1982, but you have to know to look for it on this giant sheet of non-specified changes.
You have to be a
from-
detective.
Yeah. And, we should be able to look at our ordinances and know what they are, we and the public.
Right.
And I think, if, as you say, this is going to be adopted soon, the best thing is probably to just see how it goes. So, Councillor McGrath, did you want to weigh in? And I keep not looking at your
I'll
side
let
of the
you know.
table.
I'll let
so-
you know.
Okay. Yeah, so Councillor McGrath Smith, this is your order. What say you?
You're
I
muted.
wonder if we could hear from Jeffrey?
We can certainly ask. Jeffrey, are you there?
Yes. Yes. So I did have a conversation with Brenna today about this specific order, and there are a few different factors that are coming into play right now. Part of it is when we transitioned our agenda software a couple of years ago to Civic Plus. It seems there was a little bit of a miscommunication as far as what came with that service. Our understanding at the time was that there was going to be, part of it was going to be that changes to the ordinances could be entered into it and they would be automatically updated in Municode. Probably not like at that moment, but within days rather than the many months that it's been. And her conversation with the rep recently clarified that there's an add-on feature that still needs to be turned on, basically, like a setting that isn't yet set up for it that requires us to add on an additional feature to make that happen. So that's one part. Another part is the ordinance changes that she has submitted to Municode. They're apparently several months backed up with, all of the different cities that they work with to update Municode. They're just backed up, so that's part of the issue. Brenna said that by her looking at it, it looks like there hasn't been an update since July. So, part of it is it isn't even a matter of Brenna sending it to them, it's just they haven't updated. So there's kind of two fronts that we're working on to make sure that things are happening in a quicker fashion. As far as adding something to the agenda, I think that Councillor McGrath Smith's suggestion of there being an additional section on the agenda could be easily done if this committee recommended adding it and the council approved it, where when a new ordinance is adopted at a meeting, it would then be transferred to this new section for the following meeting under items that are yet to be
Codified.
copied into Municode. And it would remain there until we get an update or Brenna gets an update that it's been added. And then once it's been added, she would then inform the council at that next meeting that it's been added, and it would fall off of that section the following meeting once everybody's been updated that it's been added.
Yeah. I think that's what Counselor McGrath Smith was saying, but Jeffrey, just a quick question. If Brenna has sent all those approved changes to MuniCode, can she send whatever it was she sent to MuniCode easily enough over to you so that you could put it on a sheet for city council? Since she's already sent it somewhere, does it exist in a file?
I'm certain that it does. I know she has paper records of everything going back years and years, but ordinance changes specifically, I'm certain she has a record specific to what those are. You know, especially since I spoke to her today and she can record that there aren't changes since July. You know, I'm sure that that's coming from a specific record she has.
All right, so.
So
I-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So yeah, what I was gonna say is that, you know, the orders that appear on the agenda that become those ordinance changes, those orders, that text of those orders could be transitioned to that new section, and then maybe like that comes with, you know, a document that's sent with the attachments showing the ordinance change that is still yet to be updated.
Yeah, we'd need the legal form, because oftentimes the legal form differs from the order. But that's just a technical matter, but I'd like to offer a motion for consideration that we request our city clerk to forward the updates that she has sent to MuniCode to Jeffrey, and that we establish a page. But I would like the committee to maybe consider having the page as an addendum to the agenda rather than in the body of the agenda. But that's a technical matter, but that's the gist of my motion that we can debate and either table or recommend. But
Yeah, well, to start out, I would second that. Back in the day, or before computers were everywhere, one of the things that you used to have in a legal practice was loose leafs, where you would have the Title X of the Internal Revenue Code, and every time there was a change, the vendor would send you out new pages,
did the book.
and you could just open the loose leaf, take out the old ones, put in the new ones. And if we had this stuff on paper, it would be relatively simple to do this individually. But Rick?
Yeah, I just agree with Linda about the addendum, rather.
Yeah.
Because our goal is to shorten the agenda, not expand it.
Yeah. And Meg?
Well, so similar to our, executive minutes, we just name them. We don't have any of the documents behind them unless they're being then sent for review, and then we get the packet. So I wonder if there's a way to just having, a standing item that just says, updates from the clerk on MuniCode. And then I like the addendum idea that Linda brought up. And then there's a space for us to ask each meeting, is there an update, But we'll have the document, the addendum that gives us a clear sense of what's been updated. My other thought is just, Jeffrey, if we could get a copy of the contract, I would love to know what MuniCode's contract with us says about how long they have to update it, because that seems ridiculous. In the business world, my husband he has contracts where they have to respond within hours, contracts where they have to respond within weeks, but everything has a limit. There's this is a 10-day contract, this is a 40 hours, this is a 45 minutes, right? Here's how we have to respond. It's normally built into the contract. And I would love to know what our contract with MuniCode says about their responsibility to us, because that just seems so inappropriate to do, these big batch updates whenever they feel like it, when people are relying on this as the one place the ordinances live. That just seems really inappropriate.
Rick?
So I agree with Meg on that part, and as we're sending Brenna the message about when can we have a date on MuniCode being done? when can we have how the contract and their deadline is for the contract being fulfilled? That exact, at the same, when we ask that question, add that question to it.
So does the motion to request her to send us those updates that she's requested MuniCode to add so that they can be made available to the council work in the moment? It sounds like we're a ways off on MuniCode.
Yeah.
They have to do an addendum and then they have to load everything into it. And I don't even know that we've even done the added service yet. That sounds like it's a ways off as a practical matter. I don't know what the committee wants to do, or we can put a request over to Brenna relative to the two questions on the timing and the contract and table it and decide next time, but if she has the file and Jeffrey can get it, then we could have it, which I think would be useful.
Yeah, no, I think we
Right?
all agree that that would be
Okay.
useful. So the question is whether we want to make a motion to ask for it, or whether we just want to informally ask for it, as I'm understanding this.
Right, so I think the motion that I made was to request her to send it. Now, and then Jeffrey can add it in some fashion, right? Would that accomplish in the moment what you're looking for as the maker, Meg? And then, so we put that out as a request, and then we table this to see if we're gonna formalize something in a rule? Or do you want to move to a rule?
No, I think we probably need both. We're going to want to make this a rule.
Right.
And the only question is, do we need to make the rule, or should we make the rule without waiting for the information about the contract?
I think in fairness, if Brenna responded to you and she would otherwise make herself available, I think to be fair, we would want to let her have an opportunity to meet with us
Yeah,
directly or come on Zoom or whatever, before we make a rule that affects her office.
that seems fair to
So,
me. And
but-
also, it gives her a chance to bring up any concerns and additional information she has.
Right, right. So I'll make the motion that we request her to send us the information so that Jeffrey can make it available to council. And also the information on the contract and the add-on and the timing.
Yeah.
That's our request to our clerk, Brenna Leary. And then I'll make, okay, so that's
No, go
one
ahead.
motion.
I
okay.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And my second motion is that we table this to consider making a rule in the future.
Yeah, and do we want to invite our city clerk in to discuss her concerns with us before we make that rule?
Absolutely. So the next time you're setting the agenda, you can invite her, when this will be on it.
Okay, and we don't need a motion to do that.
We need a motion to table and invite the clerk to the next meeting that we take it up at. So that, my motion is to table and invite the clerk to the next meeting.
And I'll second that.
Okay, and under discussion, I see Meg's hand.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that the ordinance side of this is coming up on Tuesday. So it may be too that Brenna has a chance to talk about it then too, if she chooses to attend. Because part of the conversation in ordinance is just, is there a necessary ordinance change that needs to be made in order to allow us to interact with MuniCode better? So we'll be having that conversation there too.
Okay, sounds good. Meanwhile, on the motion,
I seconded it.
yeah, it's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item 6.
All right,
Yours.
yes. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 6 is me, and this is that we amend Rule 8K to provide that except where otherwise required by the state charter or state law, any enactment, amendment, or repeal of an ordinance shall be by majority vote of all members of the city council. And I filed this, in part because I think that the charter clearly contemplates that for many normal ordinance votes, it should be by majority. We haven't done that in many years because, as I understand it, people have felt that a 9-vote rule leads to consensus, and consensus is good and harmonious. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the explanation that I've heard. And there was a charter change offered in the last term to amend our charter to make it require 9 votes. That change failed by, I think it was a 6-4 vote on October 7th or something. But at any rate, the council rejected the charter change that would have encoded the 6 votes. And this rule change is basically to move us toward consistency with our charter. And, I did think about whether it would be a better idea to hold off on asking for this until we took up the related ordinance change. But it occurred to me as I thought about it that although the instances where this rule would be a problem with our current ordinance are rare, they do exist, because our current ordinance, and thank you to Councilor Bacon for pointing this out, but our current ordinance says that a normal ordinance change that is not otherwise required to be 9 votes shall be by a 2/3 majority of those present.
Correct.
So it is possible to imagine a situation where, say, 2 members of the council are absent when an ordinance comes up for a vote. So 2/3 of the members present is satisfied by 8 votes. And if we leave this rule alone, because it requires 9 votes, we still can't pass it, because although the ordinances say that those 8 votes are enough, the current version of the rule says, nope, you still need 9. So, that's the idea, and have at it.
Okay. So our rules are very clear that it's 2/3 vote of the full membership.
Yep.
Which means entire, which means 9.
Exactly.
Except for the fact that one year we got a legal opinion from the city solicitor that said, yes, indeed, that is correct, it's 9 votes. And the next year, the same city solicitor wrote us a legal opinion that said, no, it didn't really mean that. And we actually passed an ordinance, which I believe to this day is illegal, with 8 votes. Because they gave a contorted, this is Linda Bacon opinion, contorted legal opinion based on the lack of a comma in the rule. Now, the rule for years and years and years had been universally and in consensus understood as 9. And I would note that since that passed with 8, no other ordinance has ever been passed with 8, because I think people realize the rule says 9. Now, I would like to see where you find language in the charter that changing this to a simple majority would bring us in line with the charter, because I believe our rule was in line generally with the charter, and the ordinance was a slight watering down of the rule, because it was to gain consensus that we got there. So I'm not aware of where the conflict is with the charter, because I know the portion on finance is a majority if you do the waiting period, but it's a super majority if you don't.
Yeah.
So there's no conflict there. So I don't know where you would see the conflict. So if you could point that out, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think this is implication rather than a specific, the majority is the rule. But if you look at the general provision that talks about votes and about vetoes, it just plain doesn't make sense to have a veto provision that says, the mayor can veto this, and it comes back to the council that can then override with 9 votes.
Correct.
If it's 9 votes to pass anything, the veto requirement or the veto power is effectively non-existent. It just doesn't make sense for it to be there.
I hear your argument. I would just simply make the point that because somebody passes something in the face of a veto by the mayor with his arguments or her arguments for why it should be vetoed, would not necessarily guarantee that the initial 9 would remain 9.
That's perfectly true.
So I think the earlier point that you made, which was said because it was out to gain consensus so that the vote would be strong and the change would be, sustainable rather than changeable, makes sense to me that that's why it was that way. Most of them are pro forma, they're non-controversial, and
Yeah, and
it doesn't matter at all. It only becomes significant when there is a matter of debate.
Yes.
Right? And so to me, I'm just giving
Yeah.
feedback because I'm in the minority and I know it. I'm not stupid.
yes,
But,
you haven't always been in the minority and things.
yes, I
change.
have.
Have you?
I think 2 years I was not in the minority. Maybe out of all the years, maybe 2. But I think actually almost the entire
She's done.
time, but I'm almost finished. But I think, especially with the current makeup of the council, this just feels like a total power grab. I mean, you already have 9 or 10 votes, reliable votes, so it's like, why do you have to water it down and change it to 7? That's all.
Yeah, and sorry, Rick, you,
Yeah, so she stated that, through you, through the chair.
Yeah.
That, it was 9 for years and years and years. Does that mean when the council was at 15?
It was 12.
it's always been.
It was 12.
Yeah,
So it was 12 then?
Yes.
It got changed to 9.
Yes.
And then now the second question I have is, we received a legal opinion and you stated that it changed.
Yes.
Aren't we supposed to abide by our legal counsel so that things aren't wrong? I mean, if I asked my lawyer for something and he gave me a legal opinion and I agreed with that, or I had to accept his legal opinion, that's the rule we have to go by. I can't override a legal opinion. It's like, I'll just give you an example. Say a city councilor was a lawyer and he gave his legal opinion. We have to go by the legal opinion of the city solicitor, not that city councilor, because he's not our official lawyer. So if the lawyer said one thing and then she changed her mind and gave a new legal opinion, why wouldn't we go by the new legal opinion?
Because it was based on the same set of facts as the first legal opinion, which we did abide by. So anyway, that's water over the dam.
Yes.
But on the other hand,
yeah. No, I hear you.
it is a significant issue.
Yeah, it is a significant issue, and I am very aware that this is basically a policy call, and people are going to have different opinions about what the policy should be
Right.
overall. And in fact, one of the reasons I wanted to get this introduced is because I think if we do it now, it's not a power grab. We don't need this to get a lot of controversial stuff passed because, as you say, there are probably 10 votes for it. But we do need to do it if we want to, and I will admit, I do want to, have a clear, where it isn't contradicted by the charter, where it isn't contradicted by state law, but respect for majority rule. This is, to me, just a good thing in itself and allows for a certain flexibility and ability to experiment in city government that I think the need to have consensus with 9 very different personalities and very different philosophical attitudes, it doesn't give you the same flexibility. And whether that is good or bad, I am not here to lecture you or tell you that you were wrong to prefer the supermajority. But I think the council deserves the chance to consider whether that's the way we want to go forward now, or whether we want to try actually majority rule, which I do believe is what the charter originally intended. And I particularly think that because we rejected the charter change to go to 9 votes via the charter,
Well, that you could see coming because of the ordinance debate in the first place, so that wasn't really a surprise.
yeah, well, I didn't know. I admit to some concern that night, but At any rate, that is my explanation of what I'm doing, and the question would be, do we want to vote on recommending this to the council so they can take it up?
Well, not that you have to indulge this, because, you know, as you pointed out, you have the votes, but I'm not seeing the reading of the charter that sees it in conflict, because it has specified relative to finance that it has to be 2/3 if it's right that same night, and mostly what we vote on is money.
Yeah, no,
So I don't see where, I think it's all about being able to change the ordinances, which is why I think it's a power thing, not a flexibility thing, because it just allows you to change it this way, and then if you don't like it, you can just change it back the other way with fewer votes, than having to kind of work through or own it with a bigger group. It gives other people cover to not vote for it too, to say, oh, well, I didn't support it, it only passed by 7 votes. I mean, to me, it gives flexibility, it gives cover, it sort of allows people to avoid accountability for their votes on certain things also. And I think the timing of it is, I'll use the word interesting, because we all know what's coming. And so I just think if people have made statements in the ordinance committee, a city councilor made a statement that he and others got elected because he supported a certain act, well, vote for it then. Don't water down the vote to 7, so then you can say, no, I'm independent, because, you know, I'm just saying he made the statement in a committee meeting. So to me, I would prefer not to make the change now, but I certainly know you have the ability to make the change, which I acknowledge.
yeah. Well, and, you know, I obviously would like to move forward with this as quickly as possible. And again, I respect your points, and mine would be more along the lines of, it makes it, for instance, easier to do a technical correction if something isn't working. And it calls back to a time when the United States Congress worked more efficiently than it does now. But these are, as I say, complicated and I think almost philosophical issues. And if the council as a whole disagrees with me, so be it. But I'd like to make the pitch.
I hear you, and I would say that you are very safe and that the current council will agree with you, because this is the first time in the history of the city, the residents, and we could get into a very long discussion about the campaign and the election, but it's the first time in the history of the city the citizens have not voted for divided government, because citizens like divided government. They like difference of opinions and not things just getting pushed through and getting changed on a whim, or, oops, unintended consequences because it didn't get thought out.
Yeah.
Because if you can do it, the tendency is to just do it and then see what happens, and then if it doesn't work, do it again, which I'm not sure that's sufficient, but I hear your argument. I don't agree with it, but I hear it.
Yeah, no, and likewise, and I look forward to, if this does pass, you're holding us to account at every conceivable moment. I count on you for that. And I mean that with all respect. So, I would move that we forward this to the city council with a recommendation that it pass.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
All opposed? Yes. So that 2-1, we get this off of our agenda, and it goes to the council.
Motion to take up item 7.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this is also May. This is ordered that Council Rule 8D be struck in its entirety, that 8F be amended to read, in all cases, the president shall have the privilege of discussing all matters before the council and of voting thereon, and that Rule 8B renumbered accordingly. And this is really based on a couple of things. And I looked at Robert's rules, and you know, we've done this way forever. It is consistent with Robert's rules, although Roberts also notes that other bodies may override that. And in fact, I don't know about the actual formally adopted rules of every board in the city, but
I don't either.
the planning board has this language, which is where I stole it from. And my thought really is to attempt to save time. Roberts talks about the absolute need for whoever is chairing to have no opinions whatsoever. And the revised edition that I have actually talks about ideally you need to find somebody who really doesn't have any opinions about anything before the council. As it is, we are requiring a stop and shuffle of officers every time we have something that the president would like to weigh in on. I think it is a disincentive to the entire body for him or her, whoever is there, to have to make the shuffle. You're less likely to do it if you have to stop and, ask now Councilor Rivera to come up and take over, and you have to go sit down, and then you have to do it again when the discussion is over. And I don't see a need for it. And
If I may.
please,
I've given this thought.
yeah,
Because I certainly believe that every elected member of the council should be able to voice their opinion on things. Having said that, I believe that the president of the council has always consistently done that when they wanted to, and that it has not been onerous on the president of the council to either call up a senior member and enter the debate, or cast their vote with an explanation. And so I do not see where the president has been limited in voicing their opinion. And if you do a careful reading of our current rule, it just says when out of the chair. And they can and we've historically used the senior member in that role.
yeah.
So I don't see it as a limitation on the president. And did our president request this?
No, this was entirely me looking at meetings and thinking, well, basically, what this came out of was the difference between a planning board meeting and a city council meeting.
Okay, so can I just put forth
By
a
all
couple
means.
other points? We've had a lot of procedural issues in our city council meetings.
Yes,
And I think to add complication of a person trying to debate when they're trying to run the meeting and keep in compliance with all the orders and points of information and order and rules would be to add confusion to the meeting. We've had challenges around process and procedure, and I think the focus needs to stay there, not at all to discourage the president, but that job does require a lot of attention to the process and procedures.
it does indeed. And, to a certain extent, I think it's how big is the threshold issue? Is if this were, say, a 50-member body, I would absolutely agree. Nobody can do that and really participate in a debate at the same time. I think that in a 13-member body, you can, and you are probably depriving the voters who chose the president of at least some of their opinions on substantive issues before the council. If I thought it were unmanageable, I would not have suggested it.
Well, what I would like to do, I would like to offer a motion to table to hear back from the president relative to this before we change this rule.
Happy to do that.
Okay, so my motion is to table to hear back from the president.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And this takes us through our
I
formal
think we're it, right?
agenda.
So-
And, I don't really need to take up my discussion with Councilor Devine about her issues in committee. And otherwise, I think that you were going to email me with a list of what you would like to see taken up.
Yes,
And we can figure out what to do with the others.
yes. So I will make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My very first subcommittee meeting.
My very